Unleash the power of purpose with impactful business voices, hosted by Baki and Anita Larsen. Each week, you'll be inspired by stories from companies that are making a real difference in the world, and you'll learn practical tips on how to grow your business with an impact.
Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's good. Sorry, that took me 5 seconds there. Thank you for listening to Impactful Business Voices podcast, where every week we talk to a business owner that makes an impact on the world, in their communities, or in the lives of their clients. So we're here to find out what drives them, and we hope that it inspires you to make an impact in the world, in your business as well. We're your hosts. I'm Baki.
And I'm Anita Larsen. And as always, we're excited to introduce a new guest today. And our guest we have with us today, he makes such a huge impact with the work that he does. And we're very happy that he's here to share more information about that. We're going to have Matthew Reynolds here. And what he does enhances community relations by building equity. He does that through engagement, education, workshops, presentations. And we want to learn more about his work and especially about the tool that he uses to impact people's lives, which is, as he names it, crafting your equity lens. So please welcome Matthew Reynolds. Matthew, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Anita. Thank you, Nancy, for having me here.
Welcome, Matthew.
So we want to jump right in, and we're going to start with what I just said. I want to talk about crafting your equity lens. I'm just going to go right there. What is it? What's the concept? What does it do? Share a little more about the equity lens.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because I think a lot of folks out there, anything from equity being part of the accounting world, the money management world. So people are like, equity, you work with banks,
right?
Is that what you do? And it's like, well, actually, I'm coming from equity from the DEI realm, the diversity, equity, and inclusion realm. And so when I look at equity, it's based in the ideas of anti-racism, decolonization, abolitionism, the ideas that looking at an organization and its systems and seeing how its systems are based in oppression, how it's still oppressive possibly to some of the folks or a large percentage of the folks that work in that organization, being able to take those systems and go, hey, how can we do this differently so that we're empowering all the people that work with us and bring them to a place of humanity led, helping them to truly be the humans that are behind the numbers, the productivity, the quantitative, qualitative information that we're trying to gather to show that our business is growing or to show us who our business is impacting. And so when looking at that and looking at my history as a multimedia performance artist, as a high school theater teacher, as someone who's been in the social justice realm, as someone who identifies in the LGBTQIA plus community, I started looking at, well, we have all these policies and procedures and people want to go there. They want to put out an anti-racism statement, or they want to put out a Black Lives Matter statement, or they want, someone to come in and look at our mission or our vision or help us with our strategic plan, put words in there, right? And help our words seem to shift and do what we want it to do. But those words are just words and on the page unless we actually activate them as human beings. So I help people go introspective first, build this tool, crafting their equity lens out of their own lived experience first. So people are then looking at how much of their thinking is their thinking. What are some of the internalized either racial oppressions, internalized superiority, other internalized aspects that come from indoctrination of the status quo and dominant culture? And then how are they putting those out into the culture of your organization, and how that is actually dehumanizing? It's not allowing the humanity of each person who works for your organization or your leadership team to actually be part of your culture. And so what we're finding in organizations that have worked with us, when they put that humanity first, when they're allowing that uniqueness of each, the authenticity of the workers there to come to the forefront, their productivity, everything about their organization starts to encompass more of the people who are actually working there, and it all starts to expand and expanding into its biggest, fullest, and brightest.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, it's very rare to hear people that are, that have all that in what they do every day, and I could feel your inspiration and your heart out there. I heard about an awesome book that you wrote, Biggest, Fullest, and Brightest. And want to just talk about what change do you envision in fostering in the mindset of its readers?
Ooh, so the whole title is Biggest, Fullest, Brightest, Shifting the Consciousness of Humanity. So this is a conversation that I get into quite often and on the daily. And we just started our first 12-week program called Cultivating Your Biggest, Fullest, Brightest, which is a bit more than just, I shouldn't say just, because book clubs are important as well. Reading is important, especially in this day of banning books. It's really important for us to read books and get out there and educate. Educate your mind, feed your soul is one of the things that I love to say again and again. This idea of shifting the consciousness of humanity, all those things that I just got done talking about, the dehumanization, the oppressive systems, they have claimed power, gave themselves power, and put it out there in the world. Now, I'm not saying that to say this group of people or that group of people to be oppressive myself. I'm talking about the ideas of the status quo, the dominant culture, when I say they in this instance. So it's not about shame and guilt. It's about educating and looking at these things and where it comes up within our systems. So if I'm looking at shifting the consciousness of humanity, I'm looking at helping humanity to become actually more humanity-led. We're in a day and age where modern technologies and these systems have a singular fixed mindset. And that mindset is that productivity and amassing wealth and having these things be within people's grasp, or that this is what you should strive towards, instead of striving towards letting humanity expand, letting it really go, oh, if we looked at this, took all that money stuff off, if we had a culture and a society that actually looked at the ideas of belonging, integrity, accountability, responsibility towards the planet and each other, what could we become? What could we actually achieve? How much more could we create and be beneficial to the planet itself and to each other? Instead of, nope, let's amass as much wealth as we can. When our older generation gets to a certain age, put them into the old folks' home. We don't need to learn anything from them, et cetera, et cetera. You just keep working, climb that corporate ladder, which is very linear and very two-point binary, right? If I'm climbing that ladder and I take a break and I actually look around, look at all that world around me that I'm not even accessing because I'm so focused just on these 2 points. And it's not to say that that's not for everybody, but if we're not allowing people to have that choice to look everywhere else, then it's a fixed mindset, and we're not expanding into our biggest, fullest, and brightest. And we're not giving folks an opportunity for choice and to choose where they want to go and what they could possibly become. Shifting the consciousness of humanity.
I've known you for a while now, Matthew, and I always thought, and you've been doing this for a while, and it's been so relevant to everything that's going on in the world these last few years. And I feel like you're doing such a great job of even keeping up with the shifts that's going on, or you're in sync with the world, if you will. I don't know if that's the way to say it. But, and to what you just mentioned now, and decolonization and everything that's currently going on in the world, what's happening with a lot of African countries right now, like without going into a whole political discussion, everything is so relevant to what's currently happening, right? So I think the work you're doing is so important to help people get in that same mindset and really understand what's happening in the world. So I just want to say that.
Thank you. Can I comment back on that?
Yeah, of course.
The reason that I feel that it's relevant right now is because of that humanity-led aspect.
Yes.
And I think that's the point that just people keep missing.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, what I keep coming up against is that people don't even recognize it, don't even see it, like the bamboozle from the dominant culture and the status quo, how much it's pushed into our marketing, that's pushed into the way that businesses are run, et cetera, just keeps us thinking, when someone says, well, that's the way that we've always done it, we believe that then there's no other way for us to do it. And that's once again a fixed mindset. And so what I'm trying to do is to practice what I'm talking about, because I'm not preaching. I'm just living my life and saying, this is what I would like to have. And I hope that future generations would like to have that. And so I'm going to leave them tools that they can pick up, fix to their own grip, and start building the world that they want to be in, that's more humanity led.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree 100% with what you're doing, in terms of how you explain crafting your equity lens as well. It is important to know what drives you and your behavior in the world and your personality, because you may not be aware of the built-in biases that you have, and you can't change it if you're not aware of it, right?
Beautiful. Yes.
So whether you think you're open-minded, you don't have any biases, you do, whether you know it or not. They come from, the culture you grew up in, your community, your family, and they may not even know it. It's just inherited, right?
Yes. And that's a huge part. We all need healing. Edgar Villanueva, in his book, Decolonizing Wealth, he calls it colonizer illness. And so it really helped me when I look at it from this perspective of illness and healing. It's helped me put more compassion into my work. It's helped me give myself grace and lend others grace. And also to look at that aspect that some people, maybe they have just a little tickle in their throat or sneezing or a little bit of a cough. And some people might be in a full fever pitch, right? And doing things where they don't see other people's humanity because they're just caught in this sickness, right? And that sickness is what colonization and, dare I say, capitalism has brought to humanity, and doesn't allow the humanness of us to be at the forefront. And I think that that's what we need to recognize, that our humanness needs to be at the forefront, not creature comforts and things that we're building to make life easier, because we increased our lifespan. But then why in the United States and other places in the world, the loneliness levels are at an all-time high. Anxiety levels are at an all-time high. The British, the UK in 2018 created a Minister of Loneliness, right? To look at this increase, because we know that loneliness in the earlier years and the teen years can lead to mental health issues later on in life, actually shorten your life. And for yet another year in a row, the U.S. is looking at decreasing the life expectancy of folks in the U.S. because of things like heart disease and stress levels, et cetera, et cetera. So how can we not look at those things and say, look, the way that we're going, this colonization and how we've held on to its ideas is starting to kill us. And even though this free market and open has allowed some creativity to happen, it's now got squished into this fixed mindset that only this few people who have money and wealth have power, and not all of us having power. We all have power. We were born with it. If we put our hand on our heart right now, we can feel the power we were born with. All of our heartbeats create an electrical impulse.
I think, Matthew, the most important is those that they recognize it, because it's very hard for them to recognize if they just don't know, like you were saying before, and they're so used to that same old life. Like this week, I spoke to two people, and they're young, one of them in their 30s, one in the late 80s, and they said, you know what? I'm going to break that chain of that family of whatever they were doing, right? Yes. But just recognizing it and taking action and speaking to the right people and having the right people around you is one of the most important. But that is probably one of the hardest steps, because once you get on that road, then when you see the light and you see, you're like, okay, I can leave that darkness or whatever it is that's going on and come into a different place, then they're more open to growing.
And that's the thing, is what you're talking about is seeing that we have that capacity, right? We have that capacity. We need to feed this the same way we feed our belly. Our brains want to be fed all the time. And that doesn't necessarily mean academia. and studying. It means exactly, or Nancy, what you were just saying, talking and having conversation with either people we love and care about, or new people whose new ideas we've never heard before. And instead of closing ourselves off or only listening to debate with the person or argue with the person so that I can win by having them think like me at the end of the conversation, right? But actually shift that consciousness of humanity, that it's not about winning, that I have to be on top, that I've got to be the one who's the best at this, but actively listening to one another and recognizing that's part of being humanity-led as well. I see your humanity. I may not agree with everything you're talking about, but I see your humanity first and foremost, and you've given me some things to think about.
Yeah. So if you were to visualize a society that's completely influenced by the principles you talk about in your book, how would that change a day in the life of an individual? How would they go about their day differently by implementing those principles?
I think that it starts up right off the bat. What was the first thing, Anita and Nancy, what was the first thing that you thought about when you woke up this morning?
Thank God I'm alive and I woke up this morning.
Oh, I was like, what's on my calendar today? time.
And there's a plethora of other things, right, that come up for folks. And it's like, what's that first initial thought process that I have in the morning? You know, am I worrying? Am I ungrateful for what I have? Am I sad that I'm living in this situation, or whatever kind of thing? I think it starts there, Anita. That's where I want to see the shift in folks. It's like, oh, the daily grind, and I got to do this, and I'm grinding it out. And people who never even go on a vacation, right? Because they can't afford it. They may get time off on one of the 2-3 jobs they have to just have the basic needs that this body needs to have: clean water, food, basic healthcare, roof over our head, right? If we had those things subsidized within our world, because our governments saw that our human beings need to have these things to survive in the world. So if we gave those things or lessen the price of them instead of the cost of them going up, all that energy that we put towards just surviving, think about that, where that energy would go and what that could possibly create in our world, and how we could evolve and what we could evolve into. And I think that that's what I'm looking for. I don't have the answer. A lot of people will push back on what I say. They're like, well, then what do you want to build? What do you want to have? And it's like, I want to have a world where we have a lot more choices than what we do. I want to have a world where people are empowered to stand truthfully in who they are and say, I believe in me. Because a lot of folks I ask, what do you believe in? And it's everything outside themselves. And no one says, I believe in me because I give to others, I support others in this way, and all that comes back to me. Because I'm doing that for others, it's starting to come back for me, and what that can become. Because I do this for the next 7 generations. You know, there's a lot of indigenous peoples who look to the future generations. This action I'm taking right now, how is it going to affect them? And if it's going to illy, that's not a word, right? I'm making words up now. If it's going to affect them in an ill way, then I'm not going to do it, right? And so I'm looking to that 7th generation. I'm not like, okay, I want this right now. I want 7 generations from now to look back at these moments and kind of give a little bit of a chuckle and be like, wow, look at how we used to treat each other. I'm glad that we don't treat each other this way anymore, you know? And then like take 2 steps to the side and be like, I'm going to go visit my friend over in Africa, and they step on their little pod thing and blip, they're gone. And now they're living over there, right? They're visiting over there. It's like these ideas, I call it the Star Trek syndrome, right? Why can't we get to a world where we don't have to have money, that people are passionate about making food or doing these things, that we're good with coming together collectively and having that sense of community and ideas with one another, right? Instead of, I've got to grind away at, Matthew, you want me to go to this protest or this town hall meeting or do these things. It's like, I'm working 2-3 jobs. I'm tired at the end of the day. I don't have energy to go do those things, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, no, this is, yeah, no, I felt that heaviness when you just said that. Listen, I know you work with individuals, you work with organizations as well. How does your approach differ when you work with an individual versus when you're hired to work with an organization? Like, what does it look like? Can you just give a little description so that we have a little eye of what it is?
Yeah, there's not a grand difference from the actual 3-day workshop. So that's one of the things, is that the Crafting Your Equity Lens workshop goes over 3 days, and they have to be 3 consecutive days. So for the way that our cognitive brain works, if we look at it from that brain perspective, there's actually an email that goes out 3 weeks prior that has about 3 to 4 hours of pre-work that folks do, which is a self-paced module, which you can get that pre-work on my website as well in the store, and it's called Let the Healing Begin. So this is some of that pre-work, some of the things that we're talking about, the ideas of internalized racial oppression. There's a glossary of terms, there's articles, podcasts to listen to, videos to watch, etc. Then when we come in, the first day is introspection, the second day is a deeper connection through self-reflection, and the third day is crafting your equity lens and accountability. So what's happening in a brain function way is that you're realizing, oh, these are some of the things I may have shame or guilt or a little bit of fear or whatever to this, but I'm seeing they're having us write a lot of that out. No one's putting me on the spot. I'm doing this in an introspective way. And now we're going deeper and connecting with that a bit more and self-reflecting and giving moments to write. And more people start to open up and share things with the group. People are starting to hear that they're not alone. So there's a bit of more community that's being built. Then actually crafting that equity lens, which becomes your own, this is the world that I want to live in. And how do I then start to, so small bite-sized chews. So if I'm working with an organization, we're not looking at the organization on that third day. We're not crafting an equity lens for the organization in these days. It's introspective, intimate work. And then we have accountability pods to hold each other accountable to those small bite-sized chews over the next couple of months. And then we come back in. We ask people how things were going with them before their equity lens. How have things been going for them now? Is it time to rewrite your equity lens, come up with something else? Are there other actionables that you want to be held accountable to? And then in that second part, we then look back onto the organization with your own personal equity lens. Now, this is where power dynamics come in, right? Because sometimes people are like, well, the big boss is in here and I'm not sure if I can say things in front of them because it's going to, but then also people are finding language that's not so punch you in the face that all these things are going wrong with the company, but more inclusive and seeing their humanity as well in these positions of power and being able to have deeper conversation about, well, why do you want this new program or system here? Or who are you looking to bring this to in our community and impact in our community with this new program that we want to roll out? And that conversation now is happening because they've gone through this process together. They have a shared language, and they're using that language now to be able to create something new. Yeah. It's time for these old systems, in my judgment, and this might not be where your organization is at, and I respect that. It's time for us to have hospice for some of these older systems. I'm not here to change them. I'm not here to fix them. I'm here to help people craft something new that's based out of your expertise of your particular organization. People who are working in the school or school district, people who are the admin of a larger theater company, people who are in a coding company, people who are in the healthcare system. These are all the different organizations that we've been working with. They are the experts in it. We're coming in and helping you craft a tool from your own personal lived experience, use it for yourself, be consistent with it, hold yourself accountable to that. And then we start to look back on the organization, again, taking small bite-sized manageable chews instead of going, we're going to change it all and change this big, huge system. We're going to change things so that we're not going to do it the old way. Because when things go wrong and we were building new systems, the first place that we do is we go back to the old way of doing things because it's familiar and we understand how to fix the problem instead of coming up with new solutions to it. Crafting your equity lens helps you come up with the new solutions to it. So that's kind of the process that we run through. Now, on an individual level, it's not turning it back on that organization. It's turning it onto your community. What am I seeing in the sphere of influence that I have? When I talk about the world, that's the influence that I have. I'm not looking to change huge governmental systems. I'm not looking to do those things unless I'm directly connected with that. Then I can start going there. But I'm looking at my community. What more can I do? Or having food sovereignty. Do I live in a food desert? Is there no sidewalks to walk to a local grocery store from my neighborhood here? How do I start doing that? Because that's equity too, right? So then now I've crafted my equity lens. I'm looking at some of these things. Who do I need to start talking to? Oh, you crafted your equity lens as well. Let's get together. Let's bring these folks together and let's be that pebble in the pond. Let's start these ripples with these smaller bite-sized chews. And so we're empowering people to do just that, to say, I believe in me. I believe in the equity that I want to see in the world. I want to influence this world that I have right around me, and this is how I'm going to do it. And these are the folks that are going to support me.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So if you continue on the track of organizations, what are some actionable steps, do you think, that organizations can take to just kind of foster that sense of inclusivity and building equity within the workplace?
I think
obviously crafting your equity lens, but besides that, what are some other actionable steps?
See, and that's the thing. Once you craft your equity lens, then I'm not coming in and telling you what you should do, right? You are using the lens that you've created with this group of people, and you are starting because you are the expert in your organization. That way, that's why it's so universal. That's why when you brought up before, Anita, it's this humanity aspect of it, that it's allowing people to really see that, oh, this is the pillar. This is one of the pillars. This is that base root. We need to craft that equity lens so that we can start looking at our organization and go, oh, this way that we're holding up these services that we offer, or the way we even run our meetings, is actually dehumanizing. And it's not supportive of all the faces and the people that we have in the room, right? It's not inclusive. It's holding up this hierarchical system, sometimes based in patriarchy. We're holding up this hierarchical system so that we can say that you are less than me, and it's oppressive in that sense. So maybe we're opening all that up, taking down that hierarchy and making these circles. That's something that organizations can do, is break up these systems. Once again, have hospice for them. We don't subscribe to that ideology anymore. We're coming up with the new that is more inclusive. And this works best in the healthcare system or in our building this way. It works best in our school district because we serve our community around has, populations that are migrant students, or there are a lot of students within our district. We have maybe the deaf and hard of hearing program in our district or for the area, or we have these programs, et cetera, et cetera. So our equity is going to include a lot more accessibility and looking at those aspects, whereas some organizations don't have that as part of it. So that might not be one of the first things that they're looking at, right? And so that's how it shifts for each of the organizations. And I'll say one more thing to that. If I come in, if MRC, Matthew Reynolds Consulting, comes in and we tell you what to do, and you follow to the T exactly what we said to do, and it doesn't work, then what do? You blame us and you go back to the old way of doing things because now you have a scapegoat.
Yeah.
Whereas we're coming in, we're empowering you, we're asking you, what would you do? We're having you come up with the solutions, because you know your organization best, and then you start implementing these things. And then we are there to come back in and facilitate conversations around maybe some of the things that you're buttoned up against, right? And we're there as people who have been practicing and utilizing our own equity lens for years now. We can come in and be like, yes, we've seen this before, and here's some of the things that you can try. Or we can be like, wow, we've never seen this before. What a great problem to have right now. Let's really look at this, and let's look at it from our equity lens situation. Let's all start by reading our current equity lens, putting that energy into the room. And maybe just by listening to each other, saying yours out loud again, that we can go, oh, yeah, this is where we need to move. This is how this needs to shift, right?
Yeah.
And I think the importance also is that they welcome that change, right? Because they're
Beautiful.
so used to that past and the way, like you're saying, they've been doing it the same way. And that goes to so many different things in our lives, in our business, in our families,
Yeah.
etc. But if we just look into the future a little bit, what do you believe are the critical elements in sustaining a community built on the principles that you advocate for?
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for this question. Okay, so the past is our education. So once again, the past can be filled and wrought with shame and guilt and everything else, and it'll stagnate me, and I will not grow. I will not go into a growth mindset. I'll be stuck in the past, and I'll keep churning those wheels. The future is my inspiration. So if I'm looking to the future and I'm just filled with worry and grief and can't even have time actually to look at a future, then there's something that we need to look at in the present moment, because the present moment needs to be our creation. We need to be sparked, our curiosity, so that we can be creative and collaborate with other people. And out of that collaboration, we've got connection and that human connection. And sometimes that human connection needs a little more clarity. And out of that clarity, right, I got to build my consistency with this group of people. And from that consistency, I've got compassion for others and their lived experience. So those are kind of my 7 C's right there. The big one is the past is my education. I'm learning from it. The future is my inspiration, and the present moment is my creation. So to be able to look at that future and uphold that, have that be something that I'm sustaining, I need to feed that curiosity. I need to allow people to be curious about new ways of doing things, new ways of running meetings, new ways of bringing these programs to the community that it impacts and that it serves, right? And then that creativity and all those other C's just kind of fall and start to happen. And I'm nurturing that.
Mm-hmm.
Did that answer your question, Nancy?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And well said, really well said.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's important for people to hear it again and again and again, because that first time they hear it may not make that difference. And that's what that importance of that education is. Even though it is the past, it's still bringing back that education into that present.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And that's the healing as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a story, Matthew, that you can share from yourself or one of your clients on how they use their equity lens to transform something in their lives?
For those of you who might be watching this, I'm reaching over right now to my phone. I won't say the person's name. That comes from my teaching days kind of thing. But recently I had this email sent to me by someone who works for an organization that we recently did our second phase with them. Let's see if I can find it really quickly. Yes. And so they shared this with me on September 3rd. I'm seeing the ripples of the work we started with you, Matthew. There's still so far to go, and I'm also seeing a lot of frustration, but I'm seeing the shifts happening. I've read my equity lens statement every day without miss since July 1st. I find that my focus is clearer, and I more readily apply my lens when I'm making decisions and when I'm explaining the reasoning for actions to be taken. It helps with self-accountability for how I want to show up in the world. Here's what I'm most excited about, though, right now. I'm connecting with other employees, and we are working on addressing the need for queer and trans-informed supports. In just over a week, we have an outside person coming in to provide our first staff training on the basics, and we are working on developing an internal training that we hope will become part of the required staff trainings. We are also working on an idea for a queer and trans wellness position that would focus pretty much entirely on making sure that our clients and staff have the resources and support that they need. This one is a little more of a dream thing because it would need to work with the budget, etc., but I'm optimistic that we can figure out the details.
That's great.
There you have it.
What a great statement. Yeah.
And deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
They came together. They didn't like say, oh, this is a problem. They came together and saw that their clientele was asking for this. And they were open now to be able to be like, well, we've crafted our equity lens. This is all about equity. And so coming from that perspective, me and my team did not go in and say, you need this, you need this, you need this. They, through their equity lens, saw and heard, actively listened to what their community needs. And now they're creating.
Matt, this has been really awesome. Listen, want to be able to share with our audience, what tips can you leave us with when it comes to really crafting their own equity lens and just overall creating that belonging and that equity in the world?
So, as you were stating before, Nancy, this is the first time that a lot of folks are hearing these things. So the basics that I can have people, because it's a process. The 3 days is a process of crafting your equity lens, right? So a lot of people might be like, oh, he's saying that it's just a statement that I can write. My equity lens is da 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 da. And it's not, because you're not getting to those deeply rooted ideas that we've taken in, that we've internalized, right? So it's truly a process to get there. What we can do, though, is be those 7 C's that I said, spark each other's curiosity, really start looking at the world in a curious way instead of that worry and doom and gloom or other things, the grind kind of idea. And through that curiosity, you're going to start to become more creative. And you're going to start having these creative ideas. There's going to be things that start to come up and blossom within you. And sometimes we need help with that. So there's that collaboration and reaching out to others. And through that collaboration, we have connection happening. Okay. So curiosity, creativity, collaboration, and connection. And as we're moving with that connection, sometimes we need more clarity. We need to ask each other to be clear. What exactly is it that you want from this? What are some of your expectations? What are some of your desires? What does the future that you're inspired by really look like? And who's in that future that you have? And then to be consistent about it, because time and time again, we're here for the quick fix. That's another thing of that colonization of that right to comfort. If we don't have it instantaneously change and shift, then we got to move on to the next thing. Higher, or not just higher education, but education is big on that we don't really, any kind of reform really needs to follow a child pre-K and then like 5 years after high school graduation to see if a new education system is working, right? We got to really look at it in that long game. So consistency is what we really need. And to have compassion for the other person, the other human beings that are there, and for yourself. Giving grace to others also means giving grace to yourself. And then I'll throw in on top of that whole entire thing that all of this is self-care. Working through these 7 C's is personal self-care. And it allows me to be able to serve from the overflow of my cup. A lot of people talk about, is my cup half full or half empty? And then there's been discussion around that. I'm asking you, who made your cup? Is your cup built from the status quo, from the dominant culture's idea of what rest should be, right? Or are you building a cup that's authentic to who you are? And once I did that, my cup filled up very quickly. And then once it starts overflowing, then from that overflow, I can serve others. So when I go to bed at night, my soul isn't tired. My body might be because of the things I did in the day. But when I'm going to bed, I have that time, that decompression time to be like, I am really thankful and grateful that I met so-and-so, that I had this wonderful podcast conversation, that I was able to, go through the world and have the things that I do have and meet people that I did, and that I'm open to who they are. And then I can rest peacefully.
What a great ending. Yeah. That was just awesome.
Thank you so much, Matthew. You are such an inspiration. So we're so happy you were able to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it has been wonderful. Thank you, Matthew. Yeah.
We're going to put you backstage for a few minutes and then we'll join you. We're going to go through our quick takeaways. So we'll be right back with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy, what do you have to say about that conversation?
I'm a little bit speechless, but again, another great one about how he's impacting the world, one person at a time, one business at a time. Again, it's really about, like he said, how much people are thinking about what they're actually thinking and what is the importance of what's going on, whether it's in our life, in our business, in our leadership skills, and really putting humans first. I love that. I think that's really important because we're in a world right now, especially what we've been going on in the last few years. It's just kind of, they want us to follow what they want. And I say they as the world, and not let us think for ourselves. But it also made us say, no, we're going to think for ourselves. The smart ones really decided, okay, I'm going to take a strategic look on this. I'm not going to just be a follower. I'm going to be leading. Right.
I think that's so true what you just said. I feel like, one of the reasons the world is so tumultuous today, and we talk about they and what they want us to do, is because people are waking up to it, and they are finding their voice and speaking up about it. And I love how Matthew's equity lens is really that. It's like holding a mirror to yourself. Don't look at what's wrong with this world, but look at yourself. Like, how can I impact this world? What am I doing that I can change within me, and how I represent myself in the world and directly affect within my world.
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that concept of it.
Yeah. He also said something again that's a real eye opener for many. Is it's not about winning or being on the top or being the number one to do this. It's really about being there in that present moment. And we do that too as well. Like me and you, like that's how we have to be with our clients. You have to be an active listener and be on that human level and not just be, again, what the world wants you to be. That relationship base, go ahead. I feel you.
No, just to what, just following in line with what you were saying, even, in the clients we choose to work with, we would never choose to work with a client. I think they're going to work with us because we're going to get rich overnight and that's what we're going to help them do. That's not what we're in the business of doing. That is how the world works. And it's not the type of customers we would want to work with. We want to work with people that want to make an impact with the work they do and help them move that forward. And I think there are so many businesses that operate from that standpoint these days, and it is becoming more and more, which is amazing. We see so much more of it, I feel, than we did in the past.
Yeah. And I love his 7 C's. I mean, spark each other with curiosity, stop worrying, and everyday grind. I mean, hello, that's everybody's life, right? The stress, all that. Not even using our creativity skills, because sometimes we don't even know that we have that skill. Being able to collaborate with each other and reach out to others, stop living by yourself. I mean, we definitely believe, I learned it the hard way for many years. Now it's like the only thing I could do is about working with others who are on that same mind space as you, of course, on the positive thinking. So creating the right connections.
Lifting each other up through collaboration.
Absolutely. I mean, like me and you, look at what we're doing with this, like I would have never done it without you. You would have never done it without us. And we would have never done it with Russ, like look at that collaboration, right? But who is in your life that's helping you with that consistency? And it's really not about that quick fix that everybody thinks, like we see ads, oh yeah, let's do this real quick or this real quick, right? It's take the time to work on it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so that you can make that difference and make that impact. And just to ensure that you're always doing it with your compassion, not just to yourself, but to others as well, giving grace to yourself as well and to others. And not to just make sure that it's not about you, it's about serving the world. And I love how he said it. It's about what are you doing with that overflow of your cup? What are you doing it? Are you leaving it under the bed, or are you actually utilizing it to help the world? Right?
Yeah. And, what he said there at the end as well, the past is your education, the future is your inspiration, and the present is your creation. You have the power to create what you're doing right now and how that future is going to inspire you. So I think those are great words to end the show on. So we want to thank Matthew again. And
yes, that was awesome. So guys, make sure that you keep in touch with Anita and myself to learn what else is going on and with the opportunities and additional information that you could learn from us. Don't miss out on our future episodes. You can always find a copy of this recording on our YouTube channel, Impactful Business Voices. Please keep supporting us. Click the subscribe button so you could get a notification every time we have an episode every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern.
And before we go, I want to send a quick call out. If we have any of our listeners today that are female coaches of any type of coach or consultants, next Tuesday, September 19th at 4 o'clock Eastern, I will be holding a free workshop in collaboration with newreality.me, which is a great virtual community specifically for female coaches. I will go through the steps needed to create your own signature coaching program. So if you're just getting started, or if you're looking to revamp your program and not sure how to get your best program together that will resonate with your audience, it's a hands-on 90-minute free workshop. You get a great workbook to help you implement all the steps in your business to build out your program. So look for the details on my LinkedIn page or send me a message to learn more and to get registered.
Awesome. And next Tuesday, guys, we have another impactful guest, Danielle Southwick. She's from Southwick Grief Recovery. She's going to be here talking to us about her own road to entrepreneurship and talking about grief. And guys, grief is not what we just think about. There's so many things about grief, so please don't miss it. As you know, we talk about anything that needs to be talked about here, and grief does not need to be discussed, just in one way. So Danielle is going to be here to share what really grief is, because I just learned there's over 40 different types of griefs out there. It's incredible. And how it can impact your workplace and your personal life, and to be able to really, what kind of steps to be able to take to be able to help you recover. So join us for this heartwarming session next week. And guys, until next week, let's go and make an impact.
Thank you for listening to Impactful Business Voices. Subscribe now and